It's time for our third match of the day, Velocity Esports versus Team Solo Mid. Both of these teams are coming into this game off very disappointing performances in Week 8.
Yeah, TSM went 1-2 in Week 8 and put themselves in a position where second place is just about out of reach. But out of the teams that started the day tied for third place, they have the best shot at finishing in as the number 3 team based on their head-to-head records versus this week's opponents.
So if TSM wins 3 of those games, they're guaranteed at least a top 6 finish. So TSM is in control of their playoff destiny. Velocity, on the other hand, needs a lot of help to make the postseason, even if they win all 5 games this week.
Yeah, so besides winning all their games this week, Velocity needs Curse to lose all 4 of their remaining matches, and they also need Coast to lose every game except their match against Curse.
And what makes Velocity's Herculean task even more difficult is that so far this summer, they have yet to beat Team Solo Mid. In their 3 head-to-head matchups, Wild Turtle and Crew have run all over Maple Street in Velocity.
Yeah, the last time they played was back in Week 5. Wild Turtle actually had 6 kills in Caitlyn, while Velocity had 6 kills total. In fact, in their 3 games against each other, Wild Turtles had 22 kills, and Velocity's combined starting lineup also has 22 kills. So these games have went very well for Wild Turtle.
Some stats that meet. Hopefully Velocity can bring those up into their favor this time for TSM from getting them. We'll have to see if Turtle keeps going wild or if Maple Street and Crew can keep their road to the playoffs alive. But that, let's check out the starting lineups. On the blue side, it's Velocity Esports. Evaniscus on support, Maple Street at 80 carry. The mid is Echo, NK Yank in the jungle, and Chris in the top lane.
And in the red corner, we have TSM with Reginald in the top lane seat, Odd One in jungle, Dyrus in mid, Wild Turtle on AD, and X Special on support.
And there's actually quite a bit ago, I think 3 or 4 weeks that these guys played, maybe week 5 or 6, and it was the sort of divine twitch that Maple Street likes to bring out once in a while. We'll have to see if he does it. We saw, Cop wasn't too hurt, but did not expect the Twitch ban last game. He's been used quite a bit lately.
Yeah, and especially in these teams matching up with each other, you would expect TSM at this point to be focusing Maple Street in bans. Velocity hasn't been much of a threat for teams all year, but when they are a threat, it's because Maple Street goes crazy. So at this point in the season, they should know, focus that guy down, and you're generally in good shape.
And with Vile Rose now, removing himself from that roster, Chris back, that shot caller still isn't fully there for them. Somebody is taking the position, but we've heard even Reginald, a shot caller for basically his entire life of Team Solo Mid, when he gets flustered, sometimes gets quiet. So it's got to be even harder when you don't have a true shot caller on the team for Velocity.
Yeah, NK Inc. has been trying to fill the void, essentially, of not having Valrose there to scream out orders for them. Who can say really how well it's been working, because Velocity's performance this season has not been very impressive. For Reginald, though, his shot calling actually hasn't been the most on point this season. There's been many times where he's went in a little bit too far. We've made a fair bit of noise about Kiwi Kid and how he's actually ended up dying a lot. But people don't realize Reginald is second in the league in deaths as well. So it is the aggressive play style, but it's also when he makes a call, when Reginald makes a call, he's going in, and it's often first. And that's one of the reasons he dies so much.
It's going to happen. We've seen it happen past inhibitors. He goes into the deep end for that one. So we'll see if Reginald, that's usually on Karthitz as well, and Kiwi Kid was on Aatrox. So you see those guys with the high death rates always kind of putting themselves in the champions that would warrant that as well. Coming into this game coming into the last previous games for NK Inc., he's been switching it up to heavy carry junglers. He actually brought out Kha'Zix as well, which we really haven't seen, because you base a lot of farm on the jungler, and that's not something you get every game.
No, especially the Eve that he'd been playing. He's drawn more Eve bans than anyone else here in the LCS. Maybe if we're thinking about how does TSM game plan for Velocity, I think they actually do a fairly cursory glance at Velocity since they've had so much success against them. They say, we'll ban Eve, we'll ban one of Maple Street's things, and then kind of whatever else next. And TSM's actually in danger of underestimating Velocity a little bit, because you'd have a tendency to look past them as TSM is focused on their 5 full games for Super Week, which against 5 different teams is a very difficult thing to prep specific strategies for that many different teams. And I would expect them actually to maybe get caught a little by surprise if Velocity is prepped for TSM specifically.
Well, the way Velocity played last time against TSM is they gave Reginald Karthus. They actually gave him that, like we said, they used the Twitch, they used things that could quickly take out a Karthus. So they are kind of playing into that, we want you to feel comfortable so we can do something out of the ordinary strategy.
And I wonder if they're going to continue it in this week. TSM is generally a team that is somewhat predictable, especially if we look back to the playoffs last split. It was Twisted Fate, Diane, and Karthus. It's like, well, that's what Reginald's going to play. recently teams have been thinking Reginald is going to play Twisted Fate, and maybe not. They've been giving it to him, and he's maybe or maybe not taking it. But the Karthus is the for sure one. There's only been one game this split, I believe, where Karthus hasn't been picked or banned against him. So that's the predictable thing that you can get with TSM, is knowing if you give Reggie certain things, he's just going to take it.
They're very aggressive. Usually we always talk about the odd one and him trying to counter. But in previous matches, NK Inc. usually outsmarts him a little bit. He'll be there a second ahead, or he'll be able to get both of these guys actually very good at smiting objectives. So there's going to be a contest there between them once we get to it. Now into picks and bans here. Last game of the day for Chat and myself, Velocity versus Team Solo Mid before Kobe and Freak take the stage. Let's get this game underway.
I'm a little surprised on the Jace ban. We haven't been seeing as much Jace since his nerfs back in the 3.9 patch. They're just mainly targeting that against Dyrus. But, we'll see how it goes for him.
Especially the fact that it's not the blue side TSM. You would ban that against, more so, you'd still ban Jace, but when it's on the blue side.
At least back in the Jace ban days, for sure. Elise ban,
coming out, looks like they won't give that single target damage. A lot of those champions being focused out now. Cassidy and Zed consistently in these games today. A Twisted Fate possibly to come up for a final ban, or they leave it up.
Well, Echo is a very proficient Twisted Fate player, and TF Shen is actually one of the strategies Velocity's been able to win with multiple times this season. They're just going to let them have it if they want it. Well, they can get one piece of the two. TSM could always take the other one away.
In another game where high priority picks left open, Twisted Fate, Karthus left open. Once again, Zach picked up the first one to see what Team Solo Mid has. They say it's all right if they get it. Again, Velocity doing we'll focus whatever you do strat.
Thinking Karthus Shen is TSM's right here. Every time TSM has their back against the wall, they kind of revert back to their Season 2 strategies, where they'd go Karthus Shen Nocturne. It's one half of it.
They take the switch away from Maple Street. We have not seen Echoes and Nivea in quite some time. It is something he brought out when he played for Marn quite a bit.
Something he likes to bring out, but I think picking a Nivea this early into whatever Reginald wants to pick against him is super dangerous. We have also heard, though, from Echo that Velocity lets him play what he wants. To me, he should want to play like a Twisted Fate or an Ahri right now.
Especially with the Shen on the board. You have to counter the global action. Have to be able to get into those fights. NK Inc. always switching up his jungler. Probably not going to go with the Shyvana, lacking a bit of crowd control there. But they will pick up some disengage if they choose to go with what's on the board.
Yeah, they're messing around with a bunch of dances right there. I think the Zyra is the right thing for them. Evaniscus has played a lot of Zyra. It'll help them void against the dive of TSM as well. TSM loves to just pile on in team fights. They play very quickly as well, so that requires a lot of tower diving, and Zyra is one of the best things against tower dives.
Second time today we see coming in the AD carry picked over on the purple team as they first pick. They do lock it in, so they're showing the Anivia right off the bat.
May as well. They got to win every single game. They better pick the Anivia and just say, Echo, do your work. Be frogging on Anivia.
Be frogging. Yeah. He hasn't played it quite a bit, or he hasn't played it that often. Yeah, easy task all the time. Wild Turtle looking to hover over the champion. Looks like he will not be picking for himself since he was picked for already. And we get another Nocturne coming out on the day. Remember now, he's going to take the place of the tiny Nocturne. He won't be Cho'Gath.
Yeah, he's doesn't have to worry that much about NK Inc. playing a potential Cho'Gath, though, because that's not really one of NK Inc.'s junglers. Eve is still available if they wanted to. I feel like Eve and Zac would be a very good dive combination for Velocity if they want to be able to kind of get towards Wild Turtle once Dyrus and the Odd One dive in with that Shen Nocturne combination.
Yeah, dive brothers right there.
Dive buddies might work. And then also when the picks get back to TSM, that's lining up to be a very classic TSM composition. If we just assumed the Twitch is just NAD carry, everything else, Sona Shen Nocturne, I'm expecting a Karthus to be that last pick for Reggie.
It's not going to be easy to get away from those initiations, but they do have the central disengage of pretty much everything with the wall and that Zyra ultimate coming in. We do wait for Maple Street to lock in for his AD carry. We can see the support on the board, and he will go with a Zergot.
Zergot is not a common combination. When we've seen Urgot this season, it's generally been double if playing it, and they combo it with Janna for the excessive AD when he locks something on. This is just entirely different.
And he wasn't
Zyra
thrilled
Urgot.
with the late game either.
It's not really there. The Urgot, it doesn't necessarily
This was
exist.
the game that when Doublelift played this was the game that in the end had to go Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
That was the game, I should say. This one is Maple Street playing it. But we'll have to see. So
against Twitch, it can be pretty dangerous. You can definitely mess Twitch up. Twitch has...
once he appears, boom.
He wants to try to ambush you. If you get to level 6, just dunk him.
See if they can do it. We see Reginald getting onto his Karthus as usual. This is now the second time in a row these teams will play each other, and Velocity will hand Reginald to Karthus. Dad did it again. Hand Karthus to Reginald.
Reginald to Karthus? I mean, it's really how it goes sometimes. Reginald is one with Karthus at this point.
And TF, obviously, since last time.
TF. I'm really surprised Velocity didn't go for either of those. They handed TSM one of their most favorite compositions of all time. None of these champions that Velocity picked, aside from maybe Jarvan in the jungle, are things that TSM would remotely go for. So very much so, both of these teams are going with their own thing this game.
They're going to have to. You can't show anything that you're going to show once again in Super Week. Like we said before, you don't have 20 games to play. There are 20, but each team plays a final time against another team here in Super Week. It's the final time they're going to play and really divide out the rest of who's going to relegations.
And Velocity has got to win every
They are looking at that path. They have to win every single game. It's a true story at this point. Changes have been made. They were made in the spring split for teams. It wasn't, normal that we saw somebody taking themselves out, but it did also happen to Complexity. It's not a new thing for teams to have somebody just, step back for the better of the team. We'll have to see if it does, in fact, better them.
And TSM as well needs to make a big splash this week, and they're still going for that second place spot. Having a bye would be so important for TSM, as their goal from the whole start of the season has been to make it to Worlds, and it's a much more difficult path if you're having to play all the way up through regionals alone.
And really, as we said, more than any, it becomes harder to, figure out what's happening when you're a team that's always been one to win games, and it's not happening anymore. And you take it to the fact of really a business idea, and then, next to friends. And that's what these guys are doing. They're trying to take it to the business and take the business to Velocity in this matchup.
It's a very good point.
It is. See if they can do it. Looks like they're going to be heading down towards the bottom side. Team Solo mid staying their power in numbers, but walking right past the ward. Let's see if they try to go themselves for a late invade here. They're not trying to engage too much.
Doesn't look like. I mean, TSM has the confidence to 5-man invade, whereas it seems like Velocity is basically just sitting back in a very defensive formation, whereas if Velocity had a little bit more confidence to just predict a TSM invade, if they would have comboed their Zyra E with an Anivia Q, they could have just gotten a kill. But instead, Velocity just decided to play the defensive route once again.
Moving their way in. TSM going for the late invade here. They got all the way down to red. They want the ward onto blue just because, and we'll probably see Wild Turtle, if him and Xpecial go top, maybe forced to smite onto this blue buff, but we'll have to see what happens overall.
Well, they'll be able to do that once this pause is over with. The teams, at least for the short pauses, are not allowed to talk about strategy because I did this last week. You just said it.
Evaniscus getting a little bit of help from QC here. It looks like they will get him all set up. Like you said, they're not going to be able to talk too much about it until they do get the elongated pause, and then everybody can be on the same page. But for that reason, somebody has their computer down if they're not privy to the information that's being spoken for that period of time. That's why we don't allow it. It's just unfortunate. Or it's not going to work.
Let's talk about the recap of kind of the changes we've seen so far.
Yeah.
Because even though we've had two extremely long games, the 60-minute one we just saw, and the first match of the day, which is a dominating COG victory, that still took about 47 minutes. I don't actually think those games were long because of the turret changes. Right. It seemed like the mid-game arrived around the same time that we were used to, but the games were just very slow to end.
The turret pushes really didn't seem to have an effect. They did the 2v1 lanes. We haven't actually seen a evenly matched up, as you would say, the meta lane of the AD carrying supports in the bottom or matched up in the top. But we will have to see if it's something that comes out for this matchup. So far, it looks like it won't be that, but they're still milling about the jungle, trying to figure out what they can get off here with the amount of wards that have already been placed.
And they are pinging like crazy right now, considering they're just probably going to trade buffs again. As far as I can tell, this is what seems to happen in all these games. But no, TSM tries to collapse on him.
Maple Street taking a lot of damage here. This could be very bad. He's already been exhausted, so he's got a full run. No, it's going to be a layways to take him down. First blood to Karthus in middle. Wild Turtle very low himself, but knows he can continuously take shots. You got to watch out. Zyra has that long-range auto attack as a support. Evaniscus picks up the kill from Echo. Echo goes into the egg, and Vivian could go down. He gets scrambled, and now it's X-Special on Evaniscus. You cannot win that. He's going to draw out the power chords here. Goes for a Q. They're both level 1, and the auto attacks are definitely going to hurt a little bit more from X-Special. 3-1, 2.5 minutes into the game.
And Reginald got a tear of the goddess immediately. As he was just spamming his Qs right after his passive wore out, he picked that one up. That was a disaster for Velocity, and I had that read completely wrong. The delayed invade and the spams of pings were definitely so TSM could collapse on that and punish an attempted buff trade by Velocity.
A lot blown for every one of these teams. Flashes and barrier down before 3 minutes into the game. These the jungle pressure in general is going to mean a lot more on these lanes, and everybody's going to have to play super safe here. However, we did get our kills before that 8-minute.
That was rather quick for the kills. I don't know how Echo's going to deal with this now, so no passive for Echo. Already boots and a tier for Reginald, so he gets pot shots at Echo this entire time. Plus the wave is actually at a spot that's not even that beneficial for him. Huge amounts of trouble already for Velocity.
And one of the big things that usually doesn't happen is after that engage, it happens a little later. The laning phase starts, you don't have time to go back. Like you said, able to charge up on that tier, it's going to be there way sooner. Do you think he'll actually go for the Catalyst now that he has that? Could that even change it?
I think he'll go for Catalyst anyway. I've actually heard Reggie say in the past that Catalyst is Rod of Ages is a bad item when he's playing on Kassadin. But with the way he plays Karthus, I've seen him go Rod of Ages almost every time.
Okay.
Because he got it so early, maybe he could just get the really early death cap and just try to blow people up. But I still think you need that little bit of survivability on Karthus from the Rod of Ages.
And we actually do get our matchup lane here, and with that we have the kills earlier, but we'll see how this now affects that armor on the turrets that goes diminishing up until 8 minutes. Not too much damage on the turrets whatsoever to start as the minion waves initially creeping there. 4.5 into this one, 1,000 gold lead picked up off those 3 kills, but no objective, rather structures have been pressed yet. Echo is trying to pretty much, no, he's not pushing his lane too much. I thought he was going to try to Q clear this one out, but he's just trying to keep it set with Reginald so he knows where he is.
Yeah, Echo's got to be very careful not to make too much happen in that lane, otherwise Reginald's just going to wall him and go straight in for a kill. But this bottom lane is quite interesting because Wild Turtle was just 20-6 before that wave hit his turret in CS, and if a single root lands from Evaniscus, Maple Street could just turn for a kill.
Maple Street in 2 shots has almost taken half of his HP. He's not getting the auto attacks in. Wild Turtles, however, going in. They don't have anybody behind him. He had it there. X-Special picks himself up. Another kill this game. Echo, pressured in mid, grabs the exhaust away.
And that is now 2 kills for X-Special, but specifically, the aggression from TSM was well measured because there was no root onto Wild Turtle, who was the main damage threat in that lane, and Maple Street and Evaniscus could never pull off their combo. That's kind of why the Zyra-Urgot lane isn't seen that much, because they don't have that natural synergy together.
This is a game of tears, as we see coming out very early. The 5 minutes, there are 3 in the inventories, 2 on the side of Velocity coming in for Echo and Maple Street, and that Reginald still stacking. And with that early tier, Reginald 172 already to the 0 and 16. So the early tier, very, very early.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of mana coming from Reginald very quickly. And I really wonder about that tier on Urgot this early. While you definitely need to build that item, since he's already lost a duel to Wild Turtle, essentially, as soon as Wild Turtle gets some more damage items, unless some amazing things happen in that lane, Maple Street's going to be getting essentially bullied on Urgot, who's not supposed to get bullied.
Evaniscus getting hit up pretty good.
Wow, they're aggressive.
Nice roots. They'll be able to pull that one back. Oh, the sponge! Huge damage. Oh, that is gonna count.
And that's the aggression right there. This is such a comfort composition for TSM. How many times in Season 2 did we see exactly the same play from bottom lane, thinking like, wow, TSM's being overly aggressive, but it's really early in the game at 6 minutes and 45 seconds because the instant Reginald hit 6, they made the call as a team to aggress bottom lane and pick Reginald up yet another kill.
I would have thought with even lanes, we really, we'd obviously be looking at the junglers helping out the 2v1s right now, but they haven't been present in that mid. They haven't been trying to keep Reginald back or pressured. He's able to just Requiem still alive. So really safe in that lane for him, and it's causing too much pressure globally on the map now.
And he did go for that catalyst, which is what we thought he would do. He's just getting those items really fast. 7 minutes for both of those is an absurd pace for him. He hasn't even cycled his blue buff yet, and he's still just spamming away freely. Echo has a tall task ahead of him to even contain Reginald in this lane.
Chris having some confidence here as he pinches himself between both Odd One and Dyrus in the top lane. He will head out, and Dyrus actually looked too quick. I was like, he has teleport. No, that's Stan United. On the right side of the screen. But yeah, going against Chris in his top lane, Chris has been actually taking every chance he can to get free damage on Dyrus when he wastes energy, but they just keep trading evenly back and forth, really.
And that is a lane that has been completely unaffected by all the early game shenanigans.
Yeah.
0-0-0 across both of them, and they're basically just farming straight against each other. Looks like Dyrus has gone with the Spectre's Cowl early.
Very early.
And that'll go into Spear Visage really quickly for him to just deal and give more frequent ultimates for this team. And I think the item build advantage is actually going to be in Dyrus' favor, since it looks like Chris is going for a Sunfire Cape early.
One word in this bottom lane is bully. TSM is having their way with the lane. Maple Street and Evaniscus can't even approach the lane without a wave of minions.
This is a very dangerous time, especially with the crescendo up.
Yep.
And Requiem, since it was used so early, is going to be back up in about 50 seconds. Nothing is going Velocity's way right now.
Still no damage on that turret. 8 minutes has passed. 5-1 in kills has been accrued by Team Solo Mid at this point. That's about a 2,000 gold lead, 2,300 gold lead that they have sitting in their pocket right now. And a lot of that is on Karthus and Xpatial. Wild Turtle has 4 assists, and that could be that Blade of the Rune King finished right now.
That is rude right now by Wild Turtle. He's not quite at Blade of the Rune King level. I think he needs a little bit more gold to be able to finish that one out. But
Right.
as soon as he gets that, it's just Assassination City coming through. Nocturne can combo with Reginald's Requiem whenever they want. And they're actually hoping that Maple Street uses his swap so that the Odd One can ult in.
They are hoping for a lot, because I'm sure Maple Street and Evaniscus are completely in hard hat mode right now. They just want to farm that lane out. They have the 2 vision pink wards down that are letting them know, or no, that's actually onto TSM rather. So TSM is trying to get the kills everywhere.
As well they should, because right now TSM is in complete control. Dyrus can just add to the party in the lane if he wants to. Essentially, the reason TSM likes this composition so much is they've always been pretty strong laners, and it makes sense that they're running this composition against Velocity, because TSM overmatches Velocity in lanes, and they think that as well. Even if a lane has a little bit of struggle, TSM can then help it no matter what, because they have so much global presence.
Chris again trying to trade a little bit back. He now has help from NK Inc in the top, but the Odd One is also there with that paranoia up. Looks like he will be able to get back into the fight to help. Dyrus is going to face check the brush. The Ignite goes down very early to alert him of the engage.
Yeah, they didn't get the flag toss knockup. They didn't try to chain anything, and he was just able to flash away. He was very scared about the Ignite, but now there's support there, and Dyrus is in no real danger outside of losing that flash.
Maple Street and Evaniscus pushed up to the turret here. As we see, it is going to have to be a bit of a back off in the top lane. Chris and NK Inc. now there can't really continue to pressure that. That's knowledge that we have free time to push in the bottom lane as hard as we want.
And I feel like, Reginald's going to go really strong on Echo here. If he gets enough Qs, he'll be able to finish him off.
The blue suede shoots dodge. He's going to go in. Oh, he flashes forward. He tries to give him the Empire, but it's not going to work. He gets caught up. But here comes Shen. Stand United from Dyrus, and he's clicking it all the right time this time.
He wants to try to get this one, but the Ignite might be enough.
Oh, dear.
No.
Nope.
It was close.
He gave it a squeeze there, and he stayed alive.
You can tell Reginald was pressing pretty hard to try and finish that. Flashing through back into the turret, and then the power of Shen and everyone else helping out for the team made that play pay off. Because sure, they didn't get kills, but the rest of TSM is able to go and pick up this dragon. Everything is still working out for them.
So it'll be very good for TSM, seeing really visions of Season 2 coming out here, finding a small gold lead in the beginning of the game, making sure the jungler is always trying to catch up to consistently 3 pressured lanes, and you can always make something happen when you know the jungler is top lane, get the kill bottom, when he's mid, get the kill top or bottom.
Just do whatever you want.
Opening up all the choose-your-own adventures here, and TSM has definitely chosen the right pages along the way. 4,000 gold exactly now in the lead. That dragon helping them out, which means they also have the timer, because no vision was there for velocity. They almost have that bottom turret down, and that may just come up quite soon. A little bit of pressure here.
I actually feel like with this Urgot pick, Velocity was trying to replicate things that Team Marn used to do back in the spring split, or at least during the spring qualifiers, where they would just kind of mob in team fights. And that works fairly well with Anivia, because Anivia provides a lot of area control, where you'd put a wall down with an Urgot swap, and you just hope everyone's just in the same area with Cataclysm and Zac bouncing around. But I feel like that only works against disorganized teams, and if you don't fall behind in the laning phase, which TSM is not a disorganized team right now with this composition that they're so comfortable with, and TSM is winning the laning phase. So all of Velocity's plans from Champion Select are going out the window right now.
And that Urgot pick definitely takes a change in mentality. Heartbeat, really, like you said, with Marn, the first one to bring it out, and you didn't see him excel in the aggressive 80 carries. He was very good at being defensive and strategizing with his team in the fight. So we have to see Maple Street kind of take that under his belt and in the mindset so he can make this Urgot pick work. They have the Avaniscus on Zyra for disengage or any trouble once the swap or if it goes wrong. So they are kind of setting the dominoes up to be knocked down.
And what you want to do with the Urgot lane is get the swap and have that force and engagement, which is actually why we used to see a lot of Urgot with a Karthus or Urgot with a Nocturne, so they can just create that fight in the bottom lane. But anytime Velocity tries to do that against TSM, they're risking Requiem, Shen, or Nocturne to turn around the fight, and the only thing that can aid Velocity is a Jarvan gank coming in. So even if they do the swap, sometimes they're just swapping themselves into death, which is creating a lot of stagnation for Velocity right now, even though they want something to happen.
These guys are just on an island right now. Back and forth, wet noodle fight forever, but here comes the odd one. He's bringing the dinner bowl, and it looks like Chris doesn't want anymore.
He's not hungry anymore. He's leaving the wet noodle fight.
See what they have to say in the bottom, or mid lane rather. Reginald did use his exhaust last time in an engagement. That's back up. Maple Street getting hit up pretty hard here. Spray and pray is on. Will it be enough from Requiem? It's going to have to be over 600 as the barrier goes on, and it was just about 400, so still a lot of pain coming out from that ultimate.
And Wild Turtle's still at full health. Even though there's ultimates down, this is still a very risky turret for Velocity to be holding on.
Looks like they are going to try to go. Chris actually getting the Let's Bounce. He's going to use the last ones to get out. The turret's dropped. It's forcing flashes here. That actually came right out of Xpecial. He wanted a whole lot of blood there.
Well, he already has the 2 kills. He wanted to tie Reginald for most kills. And Echo, once again, in a duel that he cannot win.
Will he get exhausted this time? Still has it up. Reggie just tries to play this one. There's the deer just standing in the storm. He gets it. The Nocturne ulti goes off, so nobody can focus.
Can he get him?
Reginald to come in here. It's also helping in the top lane engagement. Dodges the Flash Frost, but neither of them can hit the standing still parked car. And it looks like it's only going to be the fight in the top lane. Scrambling for the blobs now. Darius doing what he can to take the blobs. Won't be able to get it. Doesn't have the Sunfire cape to start it off. Only the Spirit Visage there, and he's actually forced to flash in the end for his efforts.
That was a top lane fight that, while everything was happening mid, actually went in the favor of Velocity, because the people in that fight are the most isolated from the rest of the game. Dyrus and Chris are trading farm almost exactly, and NK Inc. plus the Odd One are very close in items and farm as well. So that was pretty much the only fight on the map that Velocity had a chance of winning. It's a good thing they took it, and it's a good thing they won.
Not something you usually see 16 minutes in. These multiple fights happening around the map here. We are going to see a turret get dropped in that top lane. 2 for Team Solo Mid. They are holding strong on each one of their turrets right now. That top one will be the first to fall. The others sitting about half and full.
even with the deaths that happened at TSM in the top lane and the interesting battle Reginald had with Echo, TSM is still in absolute control. 5,000, close to a 5,000 gold lead, only 16 minutes into the game, is not quite at the no comeback path, but it's getting very close.
Look at this build coming in here for Maple Street. We have seen it before. Turtle forcing that flash as the wall goes down into Echo. The expunge won't be there, and Echo's forced to go back. He does have not his... No, he just flashed. He does not have the ignite up, so they won't be going anything for this turret dive. But just noticing Maple Street, the bottom lane, they're actually getting twisted out. There is going to be the pop-up, and Odd One is going pretty low here. Looks like Maple Street may be able to find him a kill, but here comes Dyrus again with the timed ultimate. Dyrus getting into the fight, but will not be able to re-engage before this.
And all the while, TSM was taking out the turret in the mid lane. Every time Velocity wants to go for an opportunity, it gets turned around.
One after the other. Like we said, it's non-stop right now. The crescendo goes across. Chris's ultimate had just stopped. Xpecial waited for the crowd control tenacity to not be there. Reginald to go down, but Death Defile is going to help. The Requiem is going down, and so is Chris. But Xpecial picks it up. His third kill of the game.
He's going for a season high in kills, I believe is what he's going for right now. All things considered, this is not the cleanest game for TSM, but they're still opening up a massive lead. That's now 4 turrets to 0, 7,000 gold advantage, and another dragon is going to be picked up as well for them since they just cleaned Velocity in that team fight. I'm not sure how TSM should be thinking about this one, because while they are winning easily, I think they could be playing a lot cleaner, and they're going to need to throughout the rest of the week.
Xpecial bringing out a bit of the all-star play here as we come into Super Week. The final week that these teams to have everybody but Vulcan and Cloud9 walking a tightrope that's very, very thin on this week. So a lot of mistakes could be made. Right now, TSM keeping very balanced. 8,000 gold in the lead, 7-3 for a kill lead, and 4-0 in turrets. So they have not lost any map vision in about 20 minutes.
No, they've had... ever since the first blood. You know, of all the things to start off a week for Velocity where they had to go 5-0 to remain in the playoffs, to give up a double kill to Reginald at level 1, that wasn't in their playbook.
It's almost deja vu, right? Because it's happened to even TSM. We know Reginald walked up by Baron with Zillion the other day and caused havoc for Team Solo Mid, so it can be anybody's chance at that level 1.
Just... not the best thing. And here, maybe Velocity's going to try to turn something around. Wild Turtle is trying to go invisible.
Actually, he gets himself out. They're going the wrong way, and he dips down the dip, duck, and dodge to get himself out of that one. He didn't even have to use a summoner.
No, he wouldn't have had flash available, but he definitely could have barriered away on that. You can tell Velocity's just hoping to get kills in any way, shape, or form. Surprisingly, little Dyrus in this lane has yet to get himself involved in a fight. I feel like he really wants to. He's used his ultimate a couple times trying to turn things, but mainly just had to use it purely defensively.
I'm surprised he has nothing, because he has been ulting into fights. He doesn't even have an assist from those. Somehow it's all on Xpecial and Reginald getting these kills with Requiem. Again, the engage here, getting that fear down onto NK Inc. The crescendo goes across. This is going to be a pretty big fight. They split, trying to deny damage from Odd One, especially that splash damage, and it looks like they're going to focus down. A very nice slow chord coming from Xpecial, focusing on that. A 3 pop-up as they all go for a ride, but he goes for the ultimate, coming down, trying to throw out the damage. Wild Turtle getting caught on the wrong side of the wall here, throws that invisibility on once again. The Requiem comes out, one goes down, slivers of health as Velocity is forced to limp away from this fight, and they once again cook up Echo for another kill.
Immediately the pings go on to Baron as well, because TSM is just turning a switch right now and saying, let's just win this game. That was just a 2v2 that TSM walked into, and then because the chase extended, they were able to pick up the rest of Velocity. These are the things you can do when you're TSM and you have such a massive lead this early on in the game.
And Jat, looking at all of TSM right now, they are on the page more than you think. Each one of their ultimates is 130 seconds to 140 seconds. They are all ready to engage at the same time if they all engaged at the same time in the previous fight. So it's just the wheel turning one after the other.
It's why TSM had so much success running this composition in Season 2. And if they can get a lead with this setup, they don't lose it because it's so practiced and so capable of just dictating everything on the map.
They've done that so far here, 4-0 in turrets, pretty dictated in the structures. They have been sure to grab the dragons in their favor. And now at 21 minutes, they keep the score 9-3, not letting Velocity grab any kills, but we have seen them able to kind of figure out where TSM is, almost get a kill, and then be thwarted by, Wild Turtle getting out. They blew a flash, but can't engage until it's back up again. They have to be able to use that window, and now with Baron coming in on TSM as they nonchalantly grab it 21 minutes into the game, it's going to get a little bit more tough.
It's going to get a little bit messy right now for Velocity. It's already 10,000 gold. It's already 4 turrets to 0. Even though TSM's died 3 times, this is very smooth for TSM moving through.
Saris Embrace onto Reginald, finished up, which means he's going to be able to get a burst in power once he finishes what looks like to be his Rabadons, that needlessly large rod in place. The Locket coming out now onto the odd one with the Aegis Aura. As we said before, the build is going to be different coming into the 3.10 patch, but the turrets at 8 minutes have lost that armor, and TSM is looking to drop this second tier turret, still not losing any of their own.
Dyrus doing his thing over in the bottom lane as well, just on his own. No real need to rush things. At this point, TSM, this is the good moment for TSM, where they're not having to worry about raging at each other. Everything's going right. This could very well be a big momentum swinger for them as they're coming into this Super Week. Starting with Velocity for TSM, which is a very momentum-based team, might be the best thing for them on Super Week, and having a win like this against them as well.
And look at this, Jat. Requiem being the longest one, now ticking up. Everybody on TSM has their ultimates. We'll have to see if this is the trigger that they wanted. The wall goes down.
It doesn't need to be clean because of how big their lead is right now. If they get any type of land on the next wave, if Reginald lands another wall, they might just go. This is one of the most difficult turrets to defend as well. I'm surprised Velocity is trying to hold at this for so long with those Anivia ults clearing the waves.
Chris does have the ability to stop Dyrus in 2 ways. I'm sure he doesn't want to ult on him, but he can definitely Elastic Slingshot, pop him out of that stand united.
TSM's planning to go in right now.
Dyrus has backed up, and it looks like they're going to Wild Turtle. This is what they call the submarine from the backside, but they don't get the taunt off until after. It's going to be an obliteration. 2 fall instantly down for Velocity. They don't even worry about the turret. It's not there for them.
And they didn't need to. That was a great sneak attack by TSM. That's why you don't hold at that turret, because you're so open from an attack, just like we saw coming around the edge and just wiping Velocity off the map.
But chat, they had wards there.
He's invisible.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no!
So unfortunate. Those could not be pink wards. Velocity, you ward up the map to stop a snowball, to stop a huge lead, and they're doing that. But TSM is finding ways around, finding way through the trapdoor and making it count. It's going to be a big engage here from Chris, but that's an engage that TSM is going to enjoy. He is trying to buy time with the bloblets on the ground, but they take the global gold in the turret, and they are going to flash it down. Evaniscus and Maple Street getting taken down. He has no chance to position reverse on this one. It's going to be NK Inc. into the fight, throws himself in. Echo is into Eggborn. Another objective they have to take out with a passive, but TSM just has the fight force to do it over and over.
And the Baron buff has actually expired for TSM, but they didn't care. It looked a little bit dangerous, but they are in such control with such a monstrous gold lead. I think it's shop and then end for TSM.
This is Season 2 TSM across the board, textbook. They haven't lost a turret almost by 30 minutes, something we normally saw. A very big gold lead, definitive team fights with what looks like a defense that can't be broken down, and something we haven't even seen had to disengage. TSM has been on the straight offensive so far.
And it'll be interesting to see if they can hold this through for the rest of the week, because this is obviously the most one-sided game we've seen yet today. Actually, CLG had a pretty one-sided game as well. It just took them a lot longer to pull the trigger.
Again,
this is the pace that TSM wants, though, for the rest of the week.
Crescendo up quite soon. That Requiem is gaining in time here as you get that 3rd level on. He's still in that level 2, level 16 for Reginald coming in quite soon. That's going to be some big damage. He is 8, 3, and 7. Out of nowhere, those 4 assists actually have now 2 kills and turned into 13 assists for Wild Turtle. So he's got the money he needs instead of just being an assist master for the team. Special still 3, 0, and 10. So it's a participation game for everybody on Team Solo Mid this one around.
Everybody's having fun. And that's what TSM really needs to be able to do, to just kind of kick back and get back to that mindset.
It does allow them to focus a little bit less on that business aspect and get a few W's under their belt here as they come into Super Week. 17,000 gold right now, trying to pressure that W for them here in their first matchup of Super Week. They go to take down the second-tier turret in the bottom lane as Xpecial takes a few hefty shots to the face.
18,000 gold? 26 minutes?
It's getting there.
It's getting there indeed. I feel like TSM is just going to want to dive once again. Requiem's not up, but I don't know if they care. Because they have 2 inhibitors, so eventually someone from Velocity's peeled back to the inhibitor.
If they don't have it for the engage, they'll have it during the engage, because it's been a runaround. Velocity is always on their heels when these things start. And since the beginning, we saw on Maple Street, usually some people will pick up the Dorans because they like it in lane, but usually you pick it up if you're having hard time in lane, and he grabbed 3 off the bat.
That's not what you want to do. That is not what you want to do on Urgot when you're trying to take over this game, but that's just because he's in desperation mode. Once Velocity loses this game, they will be effectively eliminated from the playoffs and have to play the role of spoiler for the rest of the week. Here comes the dive.
There it is. It goes on to Echo. He goes down instantly. The Egg's not going to be there, and they will continue the fight. NK Inc. forced to flash out. He only stops Reginald there, but that only means the AoE wasn't there. But here it is. Velocity to their heels, running back for the fountain, and TSM is going to run amok in the base.
And they couldn't even quite finish off NK Inc. Reggie, not worth trying to get that ultimate off. Here go the Nexus turrets. I wonder if Velocity's going to keep fighting or if they're just going to give up the Nexus.
A very definitive and well-played game coming in from Team Solo Mid, reminiscent of their past history and gameplay strategy. Wheelhouse strats coming in for the victory. TSM feeling good about that one. A little less stress on this win.
I would say there was almost no stress on TSM that entire game. Reggie was playing very freely. He actually died 4 times on Karthus. The team had 5 deaths, but that's because that's just the way he plays Karthus with his aggressive play style. All in all, unfortunate for Velocity to be removed from the playoff race, but now it's all about TSM's race for second and staying in the playoffs.
When you think about that game, would TF have made a difference? It wasn't a split push game. It wasn't we're working the map globally and with objectives. It was all fights for Team Solo Mid, even though they had a global team. So they actually pinched Velocity into some of the picks they really didn't like.
If Velocity is going to go with the Urgot, they need ways to actually have his swap have a positive impact for the team, because every time he swapped, TSM would have multiple answers to go in any direction, and that's not the way to beat TSM.
NK Inc. still trying to do what he could from the jungle, this time switching it up to Jarvan, one of those junglers we see going from Eve to Kha'Zix to everything. And this was actually one of the first games we saw the lanes evenly matched up. AD support bottom, mids, tops. And it was definitely
the fastest one we've seen yet.
The fastest one we have seen yet. Very good point. So we've got to, all right, guys, we've got to go AFK for a couple minutes, but don't report us, because when we return, TSM's Reginald and Wild Turtle will join us to talk about starting off Super Week with a win. Then we'll break down some of Super Week's super plays and update the standings heading into the second half of our day. The North American League of Legends Championship Series. We'll be right back.